Well, originally I was motivated to scuba dive because my dad had a dive shop here in town. And one of the things that he did was he taught a lot of the lawyers from the courthouse. Peter Laporte, Patty Kokalas, some people that went on to become judges, Rob Carney, different judges. So I got exposed to lawyers that way. And, so that's kind of how I got interested. And of course, they all had war stories. So that's what motivated me initially. We're Cuban, and what happened is my dad was an airline pilot for Cubana, and when Castro took over, and one of the first things he did was nationalize the airlines. So he saw the writing on the wall, and also he was training to fly MiGs, which is a sure sign that the Russians are here, as they say. And so a year after Castro took over, you could still leave on a with a visa. Part of your family could leave. So my mom, my sister, and I came over on a visa to the U.S. vacation, long vacation, and he stayed behind because he had to. But his route was Havana to New York to Madrid. I am the first lawyer and judge in the family. My dad's family in Cuba was a banking person, banking executive, and my mom's family was he was the local sheriff in one of the towns around Havana, the local constable, I guess you'd say. And so I am the first lawyer both in Cuba and here, and also the first judge, obviously. And my kids, um, I guess they think I work too hard because they want to be airline pilots. Well, I was exposed to lawyers, but I was also exposed to judges because when I was a junior, senior in high school, and then my first year in college, I was seriously dating Kathy Tedder, George Tedder's daughter. And as you know, George Tedder was one of the first circuit court judges here in Broward back in the 70s, eventually became chief judge. But I was over at their house for dinner at least 3 or 4 times a week, so I got to hang out with him. And what I noticed about being a judge is that, a judge is just an ordinary person, maybe smart, hopefully smart, but they're just ordinary people. And they're in a position, which is an honorable position, and they're trying to do the best they can for the people that appear in front of them. And I remember George Tedder, coming home at the end of the day after a difficult case all day long, non-jury trial. And he had one with FP&L specifically that I remember, and he was just constantly going over in his mind and talking about his decision and whether it was the right decision and trying to do the right thing. And I was very impressive. Also, I got to know him on a social level because I was over there for dinner, and Jose Gonzalez would come over, one of his best friends, and he was a circuit court judge at the time, and we'd have dinner together, or we'd go up to the Georgia-Florida game up in Jacksonville, and I'd hang out with him for 4 or 5 days. And judges are definitely just normal people trying to do the best they can for the people in front of them. So that's what I wanted to do. Well, it means a lot of things. First of all, it means that every day you go in and you have people who have the most important case, the most important issue to them in front of you. So you try to give them as much attention as possible. And you always try to do the right thing and follow the law. And usually, fortunately, the right thing is usually what the law dictates should happen in the case. But, always bound by the law and the Constitution. You have to follow that. And at the same time, the happiest day for a judge is when everybody leaves happy, which rarely happens. My favorite part is really listening to people. I enjoy most of what I hear. Some of it I don't, but 90% of what I hear, I enjoy hearing, and I listen and try to make the best decision. As far as the most enjoyable part is when I was in family. It's when you can resolve the issue and both people leave and they have finality in it. Independency, obviously, it's saving the kids as much as you can putting them in the best situation possible for them to have a future. In criminal, really criminal, the most enjoyable thing is seeing people that are quote, innocent or almost innocent, being found not guilty of what they're charged with. Or on the other hand, also seeing people that have done some really bad things, receiving the sentence they deserve. So and in civil, it's really just listening to people and trying to see if they can have their day in court, and then just making a decision. People need a decision, because if they don't get a decision, it just goes on and on and on. So I usually decide right away, hopefully correctly. The fondest memory on the bench, is really the next day. Tomorrow is the fondest memory, because tomorrow I'll have a chance to, do something in a case and make a decision that hopefully is the right decision. It's the lawful decision, and the person that's there, even if they don't both leave happy, they think they've gotten a fair hearing in front of the judge, because you can't make everybody happy, but at least they can leave court, that they're feeling that they've gotten a fair shake. And that's very important, because the studies have shown that, believe it or not, litigants that go into court are more concerned about having their story told than they are about actually winning. They're happier if they can tell their story and have a decision made, even if they don't get the prize, as it were, at the end of the day. So it's important to listen to people, and important to understand, their trauma in being in front of you. Well, the answer to that is no, we do not have enough Hispanic judges. We don't have enough minority judges on the bench generally. And the need for more judges and more minority judges, Hispanic judges, black judges, is really based on the community. You want the judiciary to reflect the percentage of minorities in the community. And the reason for that isn't that they're going to get any more favorable treatment. Hispanics don't get any more favorable treatment in front of a Hispanic judge than they would anybody else. Black defendants do not get more favorable treatment in front of a black judge than they would anywhere else. But they accept. You get rid of the that it was done because of prejudice. You get rid of that animosity or that hard feeling. I could sentence a Hispanic when I was in criminal. I could sentence a Hispanic defendant to 10 years, which is like the guidelines, and they would just say, okay, I got the guidelines. But if it's not a Hispanic judge, they think, oh, this guy gave me 10 years because he's not Hispanic. So it's a question of community relations and representation of the community as much as possible by the judiciary. And, Hispanics are underrepresented. Blacks are even more underrepresented than Hispanics on the bench in terms of the percentage of the population. And there are qualified Hispanics and there are qualified black lawyers that would make excellent judges. I think it's really a question of unity. We have to work together to bring those people that are lawyers that are very qualified and are a minority to the attention of the powers that be it the governor, or the Judicial Nominating Committee, or the voters, so that they can either get elected or appointed. Well, that's one of the things I meant to tell you before, which is that judges are pretty isolated. When I was an attorney practicing 11 years ago, I had a circle of friends that I would hang out with, go have a beer with, go here, go there, go to games with. And what happens is when you become a judge, one of the downsides, but it's probably a necessary downside, is you become very isolated. And you don't have that closeness that you had with friends, or for that matter, politics. So I think it's important for judges to participate in events which they can participate in, to bring attention to the community about what they're doing and their minority, and let people see that they're doing a good job. You want a Hispanic judge, that projects, hey, I'm doing a good job, and let the community see that, so that they're not afraid of appointing minorities and not afraid of having minorities elected as judges. So the judge is kind of isolated. I think the lawyers can do more to, bring the community together, and the judges should be there. If they're asked to go to an event, or if they're invited to an event and they can go, they should go and just make an appearance. They can't fix any traffic tickets, though. You wouldn't believe on the campaign trail how many times people would come up to you and say, hey, I've got a traffic ticket. Can you do anything about it? So, that's not the impression you want to give. That's the opposite impression. In Broward County, there's a couple of things three things actually, that work in terms of either an appointment as a judge or an election as a judge. There are numerous, I wouldn't say numerous, maybe 200 people, 300 people in Broward County who basically are the decision makers and the influential people in politics, be they either Democrats or Republicans. But you got to get to know those people, and you got to make yourself known to them, not just hi, how are you, but a little bit about you, a story about you, some of your qualifications. Get to know those people, because if there's an appointment, they're the ones that are going to control that. If there's an election, they're the ones that can get votes for you if you're going to run as a judge. So you have to get to know those people. The second thing that works in Broward County is money. If you have enough money, you can advertise, you can do the different things you need to do in an election to become any candidate, but particularly a judge. At a minimum, you need $150,000 to $200,000 to run a campaign at a minimum. And I know there have been campaigns that have spent $500,000, for a judicial election, not a Senate or anything like that, just a judicial election. And that's because Broward County is a big place. That's one of the things you learn when you're running for judge, is that Broward County is huge, and you have to be everywhere and be seen everywhere. I remember when I had an opponent, I decided that I was going to spend $80,000 running campaign ads in the south part of the county, because I was known in the central part of the county, but I wasn't as well known in the Hollywood and Pembroke Pines area. So I ran TV ads, and that was $80,000 out the window that immediately. So money works, political contacts work. Oh, the third thing that works, and this works for black judges, it can work for Hispanic judges, but it doesn't work as well for Hispanics, and because Hispanics are not as well organized as black, the black community. Votes. If you control a significant number of votes as a minority in the community, and think how well this has worked in Dade County for the Cuban community. You have access to judgeships and political office. So those are the three things that work. If you can control votes just because you're, active in the community, for example, or active in a large group that votes, that's a big advantage. So those are the three things I think that work as far as judicial elections.